time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Feel, don't think.
Fear is my ally.
The Force will be with you.
We are encouraged to love.
Be mindful of your thoughts.
I will not betray the Republic.
Hey, your worship, I'm only trying to help.
Scruffy-looking nerf herder.
I'm not afraid.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
So this is going to be kind of a rehash video of history, but I really think new people here have to understand what is really going on. It's going to start out with Kathleen Kennedy. She was born in Berkeley, California. Her father was a Democrat activist and judge. And no, she's not related to the Kennedys of Massachusetts, so don't be stupid and go there, okay? And she went, I'm going to say, to the University of California, San Diego. And while she was there, she got into media. She was a radio producer. And she saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And this is after she started getting really interested in movies. Well, she packs her, Pinto or Gremlin or whatever hatchback piece of shit 70s car she had and drove like a bat out of hell up to Los Angeles and couch surfed on her sister's sofa, her twin sister Connie's sofa, till she got a job. And she made a beeline for the Steven Spielberg group because she wanted to work with him. She made a beeline and ended up being hired by this guy. This is John Milius. He's one of my all-time favorite, if not favorite, film makers. He wrote Red Dawn. He did The Wind of the Lion. He was also really, he's also really close friends to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. He was one of those guys that didn't necessarily agree with them on everything. And he's probably of all of them, their most romantic writer. Okay, he could quote the Iliad and the Odyssey, quote Shakespeare, all right? He's very much an alpha male, as you can see by the picture of him with the shotgun. Steven Spielberg once told a story about they were doing a deal for a movie and Milius walks in with a 45 and lays it on the table between him, the other filmmakers, and the executives. I mean, the guy was off the hinges, right? So Kennedy picks him of all people to network with and to cajole. He hires her, and then Steven Spielberg, because he thought she was very well organized, hired her to be his assistant. And in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they filmed that, she was his assistant. There she met her husband, Frank Marshall. Now, Frank Marshall was not only a producer on Raiders, he also had a role. The pilot in the flying wing that gets hit in the head by Marion with the wheel chocks, that's Frank Marshall. Okay. And so he got a role in it. And they met, things happened, and they get married. So she has a developing relationship. Steven Spielberg, Marshall, it appears, has had a business relationship with him already. He was part of the team, right? They also fell in with Lucas, so they're in with the in crowd, right? And Raiders of the Lost Ark was a big deal. Okay, it was the movie that Lucas and Spielberg discussed on the beach in Maui while Star Wars hit the theaters to, greatness, unparalleled greatness. I mean, if you look at how much Star Wars made, if you count for inflation, there were people still lining up for that movie in December of 1977. If you wanted to go to a movie on Christmas or drop the kids off at the movies while you went shopping, you just take them over there, they go in, sit down and watch Star Wars for the 50th time. So Kennedy became associate producer of E.T., right? The extraterrestrial. She told a story about how they got one script and then Spielberg discovered the alien, at least she credited him with that, and said, that's what we should make a movie about. The woman to Spielberg's left is the mighty Melissa Matheson. She's already married to Harrison Ford here. Powerhouse film and TV writer. She wrote the script for E.T., right? In fact, Harrison actually had a cameo role as the principal of the school, and they cut it, and it was I believe it was really kind of funny, and but they cut it, and that's all right. So here she is. The two most important people in this picture are Spielberg and Matheson. So now let's go to the TV show or movie, The Twilight Zone. This was an anthology movie. Spielberg and Lucas were intrigued by the TV show, Rod Serling's thing. They wanted to make a movie, so they made an anthology. John Landis, director of the Vietnam segment, starring Vic Morrow, and it was about Vietnam. And the story is, which I believe, there were a lot of safety issues going on. They had a Huey helicopter or two. The helicopters in Vietnam. There was a lot of coke. And I'm not talking Coca-Cola. There was a lot of fucking coke everywhere. All right. Spielberg wasn't on the set. Lucas wasn't on the set. Kennedy wasn't. Her husband was. Okay. So what happens is there's a malfunction. Helicopter crashes, and one of the blades decapitates Morrow and the two Vietnamese kids. So it's not only a big fucking deal, it's a scandal. And it changed the way safety standards were, right? So what happens is a lot of people get charged with, what they got charged with. And Frank Marshall, whom the FAA and the federal government wanted to talk to, packs a bag and flees to London. He stays at the Dorchester or the London Ritz-Carlton or whatever. U.S. Marshal comes and with a British escort shows up at his room, says, I'm here to bring you back. You need to answer some questions about the accident on the set of that movie, of this movie. Marshall says, okay, fine. Let me take a shower and pack, and I'll meet you downstairs. Instead, he packs his bag, flees to the airport, and flies to Paris, where I don't think they have an extradition treaty with the United States. There's something here, and it's always haunted the relationship between the three people, right? And my opinion is that the relationship is less happy to see you, we're best friends ever, and more of we all have to put up with each other because of this. Now, I don't know if the statute of limitations is done, but, Marshall's here in the United States. He goes back and forth, so I think it probably is. Anyway, John Landis, etc., all those people got acquitted, right? And I think it's bullshit. I think somebody, the people in charge that were on the set that night, should have been fired or should have been at least fined or something. The fact that those two kids were working at night, which is now against the rules, is to me absolutely unfucking believable. But the story goes, Spielberg and Kennedy and Marshall created the Amblin company, and it's been the thing that Spielberg uses to make films. I don't know how involved Kennedy and Marshall are with it. They're still technically, I guess, partners. They have their own company now, Kennedy Marshall. Mostly it has everything to do with a lot of documentaries. But the reason why I want to talk about this is further on the flip side of the video. So let's talk more.
Is the glue to all 5 of these films that gave us all of our rhythm and all of our melody, the great maestro, John Williams.
So this is the reason why I wanted to do this video. When they were doing PR for West Side Story, here we have Rachel Zegler, who played Maria. The woman who starred with her in it got full praises from Steven Spielberg. Spielberg barely said a word, if anything, about Zegler. So you gotta ask why. What did she do on set that would make him go silent? And if Steven Spielberg goes silent about somebody that he has worked with, that's a message to Hollywood not to really have anything to do with this person. And I don't know if it worked quite as well as it did with Kennedy, but it was very loud. And I saw a video yesterday about that. And Steven Spielberg being, I'd say, the most powerful man in Hollywood, what he says goes a long way, means something when he doesn't say a word. So we've got, all right, let's go back to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. 2021, or is it 2022, Spielberg that February leaves making Dial of Destiny as the director. You want to do it. So Kennedy gets James Mangold, who is not a bad choice. All right, I mean, the guy's a good director. I'm not going to sit there and say he's awful. All right, I don't do that. I'll give kudos where people deserve. But she did something that I think Spielberg did not want to have done. She brought in Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the woman I call the British stick insect with no soul, right? She's obnoxious. She's just not somebody you want around your set because she doesn't have any self-awareness. I've noticed that with a lot of actresses nowadays. They have zero idea of what they sound like or look like. Spielberg walks away. We don't get a real reason why. I'm going to assume it's because of Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Now remember, Kennedy had ingratiated herself enough with George Lucas and Spielberg to be the co-president of Lucasfilm. And then when Lucasfilm was sold, she became the interim president. When The Farce Awakens made so much money, she was kept on. It's like, and then it all went to hell, like immediately. Okay, Rogue One was the bright spot in a bunch of shit, and I mean a bunch of shit. But let's go back to Spielberg. Why does Spielberg not say anything about Phoebe Waller-Bridge? Okay, think about that. We get to the premiere of Indiana Jones on the Dial of Destiny in Hollywood, right? Los Angeles. Everybody walks out on stage. You got Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and Frank and Kathy. Spielberg, you saw the video. You've seen it a million times. You see the reactions of Frank and Kathy when they're not mentioned at all. Like, they're standing there. Steven's quite aware they're standing there. Harrison Ford is looking right at them. And George is like, get me the fuck off the stage. Okay, there's a reason why Spielberg, with them standing there, deliberately ignores them and does not mention them. And the reason why is they all knew how bad the movie would be. They did not want to make the movie, except for Harrison. And it was Kathy's failure alone, right? And Spielberg being, basically the president and commander-in-chief of Hollywood, made sure everybody that was there, Bob Iger said, go ahead and do it, because Iger had already fucked her over with taking Willow off of Disney Plus and shutting down the Star Wars Hotel. They wanted everybody to make sure that Kennedy is done. This was a canceling. Spielberg's silence, ignoring them in front of the entire establishment, was a canceling. And from what I gathered from what Matt Bellamy said earlier this year, I think in February or March, when he announced that Kennedy was out and by within a few months or the end of the year, and she came out, rawr, and he bit back. She's not only out, people are done with her. Her PR guy made an asshole of himself. Okay, so Spielberg is the guy that put this out there. She's no longer somebody we want to work for us. Neither is Frank. Frank has got Jurassic Park, fine. But as far as having Spielberg's confidence, George's confidence, Harrison Ford's confidence, they don't. It was a canceling. And everybody in Hollywood knew that. And it's the same thing, in a way, that Spielberg did to Rachel Zegler. And it's worked with Kennedy. Okay? So I just wanted to drop this on there, because when you're in a political situation like this, and it is political, this was power plays and incompetence being called out. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. Eventually, your bullshit comes back to bite you in the ass when your incompetence fucks people who are much more powerful than you are, right? And that's exactly what Kennedy did. And Spielberg, standing there with Harry and George, let everybody know. This is Steph, signing out. See you around the galaxy.